What's up, guys? I'm BTC. We just got a brand new patch on the live version of the game. Also, Blizzard seems to have stumbled into an awkward and embarrassing situation. More on that in a second. First up, the patch changes on the live version of the game. These are from the experimental mode, which has now been removed. And kind of a side note, if they add an experimental mode that just has balance changes, I'd say probably 90% of them are going to be moved over to the live version of the game. So I've already covered these in a previous video, but a quick recap on all the CC nerfs, although there are kind of some buffs. We'll get to that in a second. So Ana, sleep duration has been reduced from 6 to 5 seconds. Mei, the stun duration, has been lowered from 1.5 to 1.3. The Blizzard ult duration has been lowered from 5 to 4.25. McCree's stun has been lowered from 0.85 to 0.7. And Reinhardt's Earthshatter, the knockdown duration, was lowered from 3 to 2.5. Then we have Roadhog and Sigma. These characters got both buffs and nerfs at the same time. With Roadhog, his ultimate, the knockback was increased by 20%. And this is a buff. It's beneficial if you're trying to get the enemies away from the capture point or away from the payload or your team or something like that. This is going to be beneficial. However, it also means that you're going to do less damage because they're being pushed away. Now, if you have them trapped in the hallway or in a corner or something, then it's not going to matter. But you do have this trade-off. So now it will move them away further, but as a result, you do less damage. And then Sigma, the accretion changes. The knockback duration is now a fixed 0.8 seconds instead of scaling with distance, and the cast time has been reduced from 0.75 to 0.65. This, again, is both a buff and a nerf. With the knockdown duration, it used to be, I believe it was a minimum of 0.5 and a maximum of 3 seconds. Granted, in order to get that maximum 3 seconds, they had to be pretty far away, so you probably weren't getting a lot of those. However, if you were getting the accretions at kind of the mid-range, then you were probably getting somewhere between 1 and 2 seconds for your stun. So the overall stun duration being fixed at 0.8 is definitely a nerf in almost all cases, except for when they were right next to you. However, the cast time has also been reduced, and that means that you can now use the accretion a little bit more effectively at canceling enemy abilities. So if they have a channeled ultimate or some other ability that they're using, you can now hit them with the accretion a little bit faster. It's going to be better at canceling that. Also, if you're hitting people that are right next to you, then it's also going to be better because, one, the cast time is faster, and also you have a little bit more on that duration because that minimum has been taken away, and now it's that fixed amount. So it's both a nerf and a buff, depending on the situation. And that's everything for the patch changes. However, there is another topic I wanted to discuss. Normally, I would avoid talking about the Overwatch League because I know a lot of you guys don't really care about it, but this topic affects more than just the league. It affects Overwatch in general. And I'm sure you're aware that there's a brand new game called Valorant. I've made some videos covering it already, and it's in beta right now. It's super popular, and a lot of players from different games are moving to that. And it's not just from Overwatch. Some players from CSGO, some from Fortnite, whatever. Valorant's getting a lot of players right now. But the thing is, with Overwatch, there are a lot of highly popular streamers that are just completely moving over. And there's also former pro players in the Overwatch League that are moving over. And even current Overwatch League players are canceling their contract. They're getting out of their contract so they can go and play Valorant, a game that doesn't even have an esports scene right now, that's still in beta. So that's pretty significant when you have professional players who are under contract, willing to get out of it, leave the Overwatch League entirely, leave the game, quit the game, and move over to Valorant, which is still in beta. One of the biggest of these names, which is also very awkward and embarrassing for Blizzard, is Sinatra, who just recently decided to quit Overwatch, quit his team, and he's going to be moving to Valorant. Now, why is this important? Because Sinatra was a player on the San Francisco Shock, which was the champions from last year. They got a brand new legendary skin in the game that celebrates their championship victory, but more than that, Sinatra was voted MVP, and he is scheduled to get his own customized legendary skin in the game. I believe it's supposed to be for the character of Zarya. So this is very awkward and embarrassing for Blizzard because now they have this pro player who was the MVP of the championship team, who was kind of the face of Overwatch League, and he decides to just not only quit the game, quit his team, and move over to Valorant. So now Blizzard is in that really weird situation. Are they even going to continue to make that MVP skin for him? I think they probably will, because if they were to move it for someone else, or if they just decided not to make it, then it probably would look bad for Blizzard, so they probably will continue to make it. But once they release that legendary skin, again, you have people that need to buy the tokens now because you can't get them for just watching the streams anymore like you could on Twitch. You don't have that functionality on YouTube yet. So people have to pay real money in order to buy these tokens, and they're going to get a legendary skin for a player that doesn't even play the game anymore. He quit the game, he quit his team, and now he's moving somewhere else. I mean, who's going to want to buy it? Maybe if it's a really cool looking skin, there are still going to be people that want to get it. But as far as like supporting the player or supporting the team, I just don't think that's going to happen because, again, he's not even around anymore. And the reason why this affects Overwatch in general instead of just the league is because of why all of these players are leaving. Whether it's just a normal player or a streamer or an Overwatch League pro, the reason why they're leaving is because the game is not being updated nearly at the same pace as other games. New content isn't being added. The competitive modes are not being taken as seriously as they need to be. Yes, in fairness, Blizzard has been trying to make changes. They've been trying to make improvements with the hero bans and all that sort of stuff. They've also been making a lot more frequent balance changes. But the fact of the matter is, there are still some really significant balance problems in this game, and what ends up happening with the hero ban stuff is that you end up with an alternating meta kind of situation, where one week you have these characters that are the best in the game, and that strategy is the best, and then next week it's something else, and then the third week it goes back to the first one, because, you know, you have the characters that get banned for 1 week, and then they come back, and then you just go right back to that strategy. So it's not like the meta is changing drastically in a long-term situation. It's more like, okay, well, we can't do the best thing this week, so next week we do the second best thing, and then once that's over, then we go right back to the best thing again. And you still have some characters that are objectively worse than the rest. You have some characters that are objectively better than the rest, and the balance issue just isn't being solved the way that it needs to be. On top of that, just in the regular competitive ladder, it is absolutely filled to the brim with throwers, cheaters, and leavers. I have a couple of videos where I go over the agent program, and I have people send me in their replay codes for people that are throwing and stuff. I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of these codes. In fairness, not every single replay code that's been sent to me has someone doing something wrong, but a significant majority of them do. So why would a player want to queue into competitive when there's a 1 in 3 chance or 1 in 4 chance that there's going to be a thrower in your match, where someone gets frustrated and they just start jumping off the map, or they're deliberately playing a bad character they know doesn't work in that situation, they're being heavily countered and they just refuse to switch. There are so many different things. Like, why do people, would they even want to try to get into that? If it's supposed to be fun, if it's supposed to be an enjoyable experience, and yet you have all of these problems in the competitive ladder, on top of all of the balance issues, like, why would someone want to do that? And then on top of this, we also have the upcoming content drought from Overwatch, because we just got our very last character for Overwatch 1, which is Echo. We're not getting any new characters until Overwatch 2. I think we're probably going to get a new map before then, but other than that, we're going to get a couple of new events, but these are just the same recycled events that we'd have year after year after year. Yeah, there's going to be some changes to Lucio Ball, but for the most part, these are going to be the same events that we've already seen again and again. Meanwhile, other games are constantly adding new content, new characters, new skins, new events, and even Fortnite is adding story, which is just kind of ridiculous considering what kind of a game it is. But you have all of these competitors that are constantly adding new stuff, and Overwatch just keeps doing the same recycled stuff again and again. Yeah, there's a new hero we just got, but the previous character we got was Sigma, and that was last July, I believe. Then we had a massive amount of time with nothing. Then we got Echo, and now we're not supposed to get anything until Overwatch 2, which probably isn't going to happen till at the end of the year at the earliest. That's a long ways away, and what are we going to get? A bunch of recycled events and maybe a map? Possibly? What is there for existing players to look forward to? Nothing, really. What is there for potential new players to be excited about? Nothing, really. So, like, what is there to keep players in Overwatch? It seems like Blizzard tried to put all of their eggs in the Overwatch League basket, and then the bottom fell out and all the eggs have broken, and now it's a mess. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. Maybe moving to YouTube wasn't a good idea. It seems like the viewership is a lot lower. Also, they tried to do the homestand thing, but obviously that didn't work. It's not really their fault because of all the stuff going on right now in the world, but even then, it's just not working, and people aren't really watching the games, even though everyone is still at home. So what's going on? And then we have Overwatch 2, which isn't even going to be competitive. Overwatch 2 is a cooperative PvE. It's story-driven. You're not going to be competing at all. So Overwatch 2 is not really compatible with the Overwatch League because they're two different things. You have the players who are interested in esports and the league, and then you have players that have no interest in esports, and they're just trying to play cooperatively with friends or with whoever, and they're just going to play against some enemy AI, and that's it. It's more of a casual experience. So you have a highly competitive on one side and a very, very, very casual experience on the other. Yes, there are going to be some players that will cross over into both, but I think it's going to be one or the other, and by Blizzard trying to split their focus, they're just losing the player base, and they're not focusing on the things that they should be focusing on. For me, I still like Overwatch. I like the game. I like the general design of it. I like making my own hero concepts and all the extra stuff that I do. I like proposing different solutions and trying to figure out things. I enjoy trying to make the game better. That is fun for me. I like doing that. What I don't enjoy is going into a competitive match knowing that there is a 1 in 3 chance that the match will have a leaver, a thrower, or a cheater, and that the whole match will just get ruined, and it's just not a fun experience. Like, I don't look forward to that at all. So, like, I enjoy the game, I want to play it, but it just is so frustrating that Blizzard is not doing what they need to do to actually solve the problems, and instead they're focusing on the league. But looking at it from Blizzard's perspective, they may not really have a choice because of the massive amount of time and money they have invested to the league. They may not be able to afford to just say, okay, it's not really working, so let's close up shop. Now, in fairness, the Overwatch League isn't a complete failure, but I don't think it's doing even remotely as good as Blizzard had wanted it to be. I mean, clearly, when you have pro players that are willing to get out of their contract to leave to go to another game, then there's an issue here. And if they're willing to leave the game, even though they're getting paid a significant amount of money, then what is to keep the average player just continuing to play the game? I just don't think that this massive content drought before Overwatch 2, I don't think the split of esports and the casual kind of cooperative PvE is really going to work. Blizzard kind of needs to pick one or the other, and they need to make these changes. Overall, I just don't know if Overwatch is a really good fit for esports, because if you look at the basic design of the game, it was made for casual players. I mean, just a look at the hitboxes will tell you that. If you look at the hitboxes in other games like CSGO, Valorant, Fortnite, Call of Duty, any of those other modern FPS games, right? All of those games, they have hitboxes that are very, very close to the design of the character. They try to have the hitboxes as close to the model as possible. But in Overwatch, you have these gigantic hitboxes that have these buffers around the characters. This is something that you don't see in any other modern FPS game. It just doesn't exist. And one of the other things with Overwatch is the fact that you have a bunch of characters that don't really require any sort of precise aiming. You have area effect attacks, you have lots of splash damage type stuff, you have certain melee attacks, different things like that, where it's just not really focused around a competitive player. It's more made for a casual player base. So I just don't know if esports is really a good fit for the game. I think they would have to make some pretty... I think the amount of changes that they would have to make would essentially make it not Overwatch anymore. But there you go, guys. We got the new patch on the live version of the game, some of the CC nerfs, and one of the biggest, most important stars in the Overwatch League has decided to quit and move over to Valorant. What do you guys think about the entire situation? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell to get notified. You can get some cool gear, join my Discord server, or follow me on social media with the links down in the description below. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters, and remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.